What else have you seen, Liam?
I saw season 2 of 13 Reasons Why.
Okay, I've seen bits of this.
What bits? No
The con-
spoilers.
the yeah, well, the controversial scene, or maybe not
Oh,
controversial. The scene that everyone was like, "Whoa, this is crazy."
yeah, no, it is a controversial scene.
It is controversial.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
I mean, it was bad.
It made me quite uncomfortable.
It made me uncomfortable, but I don't think it was. I did like me and my sister because she was the one watching it.
Yeah,
We'd had a conversation about like she was saying, "Oh, there's like this scene that's coming up that everyone's been saying, oh, it's disgusting, or oh, what, rah, rah, rah."
yeah,
So I was sitting there, and she was like, "It's in this episode." So I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll stay and watch it because I saw the bad scene from the first one.
yeah,
May as well keep my trend going of only seeing the worst or the horrible bits of 13 Reasons Why."
yeah.
And then it happened, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's disgusting that they're doing that." But I wasn't like offended by the show or anything.
No, yeah, I agree. I didn't find
I
it
don't know.
offensive. I mean, okay. So first, sorry to any listeners that are listening to this that haven't seen the show, because obviously we're talking about something without really talking about it, and that must be annoying for you.
Yeah, yeah,
However, much like the first one, which also had backlash for that scene, I think it's important that those sort of things are shown. And I was reading an interview with the actor, like the main actor that was in that scene, who was saying that he didn't really want to do it at first until someone brought him some research that basically showed, one, how common that sort of thing is in
yeah.
schools, and two, that the average age that that sort of thing happens to is boys that are 12 years old.
Oh, Jesus.
And he was like, after reading that, basically, he felt like he had to do it because it's something that needs to be addressed. Which
Yeah,
is the only criticism I have, is they do it right at the end of the season, so they obviously can't really address it in this season. It's going to have to
yes.
carry on if they do a season 3, and if they do a season 3, is currently in jeopardy because of the reaction that this scene is getting.
I mean, my like issue with the show without having watched it, which is a interesting stance to take,
Yes.
is I do worry that there's a lot of this talk of like we're doing it to help and stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes I do sit there and I'm like, I don't know if you are.
Yes. I
Because
felt that
they
a
were
couple
told,
of
because
times.
after the first season, right, the like big deal with that is it's not a spoiler to say that the show's about suicide, right?
No, like the premise of the show.
Yeah.
Alright, so the premise of the show for anyone that's listening. Season 1 is about a girl that committed suicide, and she left behind a series of tapes that basically told the story of what led her to make that decision to take her
Yeah.
own life. That's
And
I think a spoiler-free description of the
Yeah,
first
yeah,
season.
because that's like the that's not even the plot of the show. That's like episode 1 shit.
Yeah, exactly.
That's like the plot synopsis you'd see on Netflix.
Yeah, so season
So
2, just so everyone's on the same page, is basically the girl's parents are suing the school for their daughter's death because they feel like the school didn't do enough to look out for her. And then what you get to see as the season progresses is essentially the same story as what's told in season 1, but from different perspectives.
Yeah.
So the controversial scene we're talking about doesn't even relate to any of this. It's just
No, it's
one of the main
a side
characters
thing.
it happens to.
Yeah. So like the reason I'm sort of suspicious of the whole thing with the whole like we're helping people and I don't know if they are
Yeah.
is after season 1 the biggest complaint that I was definitely on board with was the people who were saying, well, look, you're showing this to a bunch of kids
Yeah.
who might be in these situations, and you're showing suicide. It doesn't matter what you're saying about suicide. If you show suicide, the percentage of people that are going to attempt suicide increases. That just happens. That's a factual thing that we have evidence for. And lots of people are always like, you shouldn't show it the way that, like, on media, because it encourages it. Even if you're trying to say this is bad, people will then see it and be like, yes, you're right, suicide. So when you get told that, right, in my head, the logical answer is, okay, well, there wasn't a second book. We don't do a second season. We don't need to. It's unnecessary.
Yeah.
And if signed, medical doctors and stuff are saying this is an issue, you probably shouldn't do it. Maybe don't do it.
So, before watching the season, I was kind of that mindset where I was like, this. It sounded a bit like a cash grab to me. Whereas, like, the first season obviously did well. They just want to milk more money out of it.
Yeah.
But I actually, after watching the second season, I really enjoyed it. So that's obviously going to factor into everything I'm about to say. But I do think that the way that they discussed certain aspects, like how suicide affects the people that you leave behind, while that is sort of a running theme in the first season, it's a lot more prominent in this season. And it's the sort of thing that I do think that's not the only issue that's tackled. And I don't know if that's a good or bad thing that they try and also sort of tack on other issues.
Yeah.
But it's the sort of show that I think is, as entertainment, it's great. If you're watching it looking for, like, you know, moral messages and all that sort of stuff, it's a hard one to kind of justify in places, because there's certain bits in the second season where it almost felt like, I mean, in honesty, they are actively sort of shifting the blame onto her for committing suicide, which is incredibly problematic.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, because that's one of the other scenes that I saw was a scene like that, where I was like, wait, they're doing this, and my sister was like, yeah, it's kind of weird.
Yeah. So it's definitely sort of messy. I also watched the behind the scenes sort of episode that they did, where it's like a round table with some of the actors, some of the writers, and they also got on like doctors and psychologists and people that they worked with throughout the creation of the second season, to make sure that they were trying to like telling this as fairly as they could.
Yeah.
And one of the more interesting people that was involved, I thought, was a mother whose daughter had committed suicide. Or was it her son? Maybe it was her son. A child had committed suicide. And they actually enlisted her to help the actress that was playing the mum in this show, to kind of give a fair portrayal of what that sort of like emotion is that you go through when you're trying to deal with something like that.
Yeah.
So I do think the show, and the other thing is each episode, so the whole season starts with a warning, and each episode ends with if you're feeling these sorts of feelings, here's a website to go to. It's going to have crisis hotlines and all that sort of thing, which is one of the issues that the first season had.
Yes, because they didn't do that.
Yeah, well, they did it, but just for the one episode, not everything else leading up to it. So, yeah, I mean...
my sister also pointed out another complaint that connected to the same sort of complaint.
Yeah.
But they released the second season right as English A-levels are about to start, which is, as I'm sure anyone from England can attest, a pretty stressful time for a lot of teenagers.
Yeah.
And my sister was like, yeah, that bit I can sort of see why people are annoyed about, because like she's like, you know, got people in school that she's like, they are crying because they're stressed out about how they're going to do in their exams. So I'm saying to them like, hey, don't watch this until afterwards.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that was a bit like, and apparently they had been told that, but then I get, you know, you can't, well, maybe you can shift it. I don't fucking know.
I don't know. I think it's tricky, right? Because when it comes to shows like this that deal with quite weighty topics, you have to address those topics. But equally, I did just find myself enjoying the show. Like, I really like some of the characters in it.
Yeah.
Particularly like some of the performances. Like, there's a character in it who is like this absolute D-bag. And the guy that plays him, Justin Prentice, just does such an amazing job that, like, I hate the character, but I love that the actors made me hate him.
Yeah, is that Sports Boy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, like Dylan Minnette, who plays the main character, does a good job. I like seeing a bit more of the supporting characters this time. So, fun fact, something that I didn't even realise when I watched the first season, in the show there's an actor called Miles Hazer, I want to say. I don't know how you pronounce his surname, but he's also in Parenthood.
Oh, of course you're linking it back to Parenthood. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, so I quite liked that.
Not a fun fact. What do you give it out of 5, Liam?
4 out of 5.
Oh, cool.
It really, like, I went in really sort of skeptical that this was worth doing, and it really turned me around.
Yeah, because I think you and Dan had both said, Dan Palmer, friend of the show, before this, that you were sort of unsure about if another season would be worth it or not.
Yeah, and now I'm at the stage where I'm like, yeah, if they want to do a third season, I'm there.
Okay, fair enough.
So, yeah, moving on.
Yep.